Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to this month's quote of the month. This month I've quoted probably one of the most famous British Prime Ministers of all time. Famous for lots of reasons, some good, some bad, but I'm going to focus on the person rather than the politics. I met this person in 1982 and felt very, very privileged to do so. What a wonderful person I found her, so that's a bit of a clue, to be. Whether you loved her politics or not is irrelevant for what I'm going to talk about. I am, of course, talking about Margaret Thatcher. I did have the pleasure of looking after her when she was on her 1982 re-election campaign. And I served her and looked after her for a 24-hour period when she was up in the Highlands of Scotland when I worked at the what used to be called the Station Hotel in Inverness. It was one of those TV moments when politically she didn't do great. She had squashed tomatoes and eggs thrown at her outside of the hotel. But as a person, she was wonderful. When she got greeted and introduced to the team that were looking after her, she basically wanted to know all our names so she could use them, and she did, and she remembered everyone. I was the head waiter in charge of looking after her provision of food and beverage, and I felt very, very honoured. We all know her for lots of sayings and lots of prolific political things, but I'm going to pick on a saying that she made to do with yourself. And she says, and I quote, "Disciplining yourself to do what you know is right and important, although difficult, is the high road to pride, self-esteem and personal satisfaction." So I'm going to read that again. It reads, "Disciplining yourself to do what you know is right and important, although difficult, is the high road to pride, self-esteem and personal satisfaction." And I think that sort of sums up life. You've got to have a certain amount of discipline in your life to achieve what you want to achieve. And that doesn't matter whether you're a politician, whether you're somebody that wants to gain a Michelin star in the catering trade, whether you're somebody that wants to be an actor and gain a BAFTA or an Oscar in the acting trade, or whatever it is you choose to do, an athlete that wants to go to get a gold medal from the Olympics. You need that discipline. When you've got it, you can have pride, self-esteem and personal satisfaction because you know you worked hard to get it. And that's what that's all about. And you know, as I say, love her or hate her, Margaret Thatcher as a person, she treated all of the lowly waiting staff, food and beverage staff, she treated us with utmost respect. And so did all of her team. And it was, the team were a little scary because you had men carrying 9mm automatic pistols that you could visibly see. So that was quite scary, but actually as a person, she came into the suite where we had her dinner and drinks ready for her, and we were introduced, and we called her Mom, which she didn't object to, but she called us by our name. She said, "John, could I possibly have another gin and tonic? John, would you mind?" There was always a please, always a thank you, very, very polite. Same with Dennis, her husband. He got ridiculed on Spitting Image, as did she back in the 80s, which was a good bit of fun. And taking that person in real life, she had a sense of humour. She took the mick out of her husband in public in front of us. We never went to the press for that. It wasn't the world we live in. If people get that sort of thing these days, it goes to social media and whatever. Would I have posted on Facebook? I probably would have posted something along the lines that I was very, very proud to have served Margaret Thatcher as a person, not as a politician, as a person, as a human being, because she was lovely. And it doesn't matter whether I voted for her or not at that election. I've met quite a few famous people throughout my catering career, and some of them were less than pleasant. and they treated you like second-class citizen because you were a waiter or you were a bar person. You were somebody who was there to serve them. I'm going to tell a little story now that some of my close friends have heard. I was the head waiter at the Station Hotel in Inverness, as I've just said, and we used to do an awful lot of early morning breakfasts for people coming off the overnight sleepers from London. So they'd get on a train in London at night and they'd arrive at 6 o'clock in the morning wanting breakfast. And because we were next to the station, we did loads and loads of breakfasts. And one morning, this very, very well-presented gentleman turned up, pinstripe suit, bowler hat, umbrella, briefcase, you know, the iconic vision of what a politician looked like. He said, "I'd like a table for one, sir." And I very politely said, "What name is it, sir?" I took his name. He said, "No, you don't understand. I'm not going on a waiting list. I need a table for one now." I said, "Well, it's not possible, sir." I said, "We have 50 people waiting in front of you, and it's not possible." Long story short, basically, he wanted to see the general manager. I looked at my watch and I said, 6:10 in the morning, really? I said, "No problem, sir. Take a seat. I'll get the manager for you." I went to reception, and I said to the receptionist, "You need to phone the manager in his flat." She said, "You're joking." I said, "No, I'll speak to him. You don't have to." I said, "Good morning, sir." I said, "It's John, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Well, a gentleman down here who's refusing to go on the waiting list wants a table for breakfast now." Given him the situation, he said, "No problem, John, I'll come down." My manager came down, and it was hilarious because he still had his pyjamas on. He put on a pair of slippers and a robe. His hair was stuck up like nobody's business because he'd been asleep. I introduced him to the gentleman, and he said, and he stood next to me. He said, "John, what's the situation?" I said, "Probably about 45-minute wait, sir." He said, "Well, sir," he said, that's the situation you're in. Wait 45 minutes, have breakfast. If you don't like that, you can F off somewhere else." And with this, the politician went bright red, thought he was going to explode, and stormed out of the door. My manager disappeared straight back up to his flat. Later in the day, my boss called me into the office and said, "I've just had a phone call from the head office," and was asked about it. He said to me, jokingly, he said, "I of course denied it, that I told this politician to F off." He said, "It's the one thing you do in life that you can only do once when you work for somebody else and get away with it." My boss, had a good reputation, being very, very good at what he did as a hotel manager, and got away with it once because he'd been disturbed and he just wasn't having it from a stuck-up politician. Margaret Thatcher, I think if she'd gone off the train in a similar situation, would have handled it very, very differently, because she didn't take herself too seriously as the Prime Minister when I met her in the early 80s. And it wasn't about politics once she'd stepped away from the crowd. It was about being a human being. And I think that's what is important. So I'm going to read this one more time. "Disciplining yourself to do what you know is right and important, although difficult, is the high road to pride, self-esteem and personal satisfaction." I'll read that one more time. "Disciplining yourself to do what you know is right and important, although difficult, is the high road to pride, self-esteem and personal satisfaction." So that's this week's chat. Little story thrown in for good measure. I hope you don't mind. If you can always not watch it. But joking apart, you've got to add humour to life, and you've also got to be a human being, whatever your beliefs are. And that's why I like that saying from Margaret Thatcher, and it does apply to everybody's life, whether you want to be famous or whether you just want to have a great life. So enjoy your life. I hope you do achieve what you want to achieve, and we will see you next time. Take care.